Real Enigmas and Theories is back again with another video. Here we are, counting down to the premiere of Season 3 of From, and the hype is all too real. So many dope theories, a lot of people are now covering the show, and a well-deserved welcome back from the fans tells me that we're in for a hell of a ride come this fall. But before we get there, I'd like to lay out my entire theory for Season 3, and after it's all said and done, we can go back and see how well these predictions aged. So without further ado, let's start where we left off with Season 2. So there were 4 major plot points at the end of Season 2. The wedding of Ellis and Fatima, Jade's revelation of the roots in the tunnels, Boyd saving the 3 before the music stops, and Tabitha waking up in the hospital outside of Frumlin. Now, the first 2 seasons of From started off with Boyd ringing the bell. I wouldn't be surprised if they started off Season 3 in the same way. Season 1 ended with Boyd stuck in the well. Season 2 picks up where we left off with a dream of Boyd ringing the bell. But he was inside of that well, so technically, Season 2 picks up right where we left off at the end of Season 1, with Boyd stuck in the well, and the very last shot being inside of the diner when the radio turns on and the bus pulls up. Judging by the trailer, they've reshot the Tabby in the window scene, and I think that her scene will follow the opening scene, which I'm sure will start off in Frumlin. Maybe a vision or a dream like Season 2. I've stated this before, but I'll say it again for the record. At some point in Season 3, we'll hear a song by Steelers Will called Stuck in the Middle. If they use that scene in the beginning, I'm going to flip out, but I think it's definitely going to be somewhere in the show. I'm not going episode by episode, but all of my predicted events will be fragmented so that when we come back to analyze this video at the end of the season, we won't need an episode by episode playback. Either we were hot or we were very cold. You never know with a show like this anyway. So in Frumlin, the Matthews family has to come to grips with the absence of Tabby, and Victor was the last person to see her. Tabitha told Jim that she was gonna have Victor take her to the bottle tree before she left, so he knows that she was leaving. However, I think that the whole family, including Julie and Ethan, will not only be sad about her missing, but they all are going to press Victor real hard for some answers on what he really knows. This is why we see Victor's urgency in that interaction with Sarah about him needing to remember what's missing. Victor and Sarah didn't have any scenes together during Season 1 and Season 2. I think we're going to see a lot of that in Season 3. We have Boyd and Jade pulling the cart together, and they didn't have many scenes either. Also, the scene with Jim and Kenny walking through the woods, and they didn't have much screen time together either. To me, this indicates that our residents will be sharing information with each other more, giving somewhat relief to the thing that I'm sure most people watching the show didn't like about the characters not talking to each other. That brings me to Jim answering the phone. Now remember, we see Kenny answering the phone in his dream. And many of your theories out there are that Jim is also dreaming in the trailer. But I'm going to predict that Jim is wide awake, and the voice on the phone is the same voice that was on the radio in Season 1 and the same voice that was on the phone with Kenny in Season 2. I think that Jim and Kenny will have a conversation about the phone call, and Jim will have some information pertaining to the trip that we see him and Kenny going on in the woods. I think that Jim will be told to travel west, which is the same direction that the sun traveled, and it's the cardinal direction of Kenny's homeland. I'm willing to bet that this picture right here is not of a snow globe, but it's a crystal ball, and it was used to see what Tabby was doing in the basement. The voice on the radio said something about Tabitha in the basement. If you look at it, the drawing is actually suggesting a view of only a few of the houses in town. And if this was a snow globe of Frumlin, I'm sure we'd at least see the lighthouse and at the very least Colony House. I think that we will see that someone in Frumlin has a crystal ball and practices katoptromancy, or scrying. Scrying is also known as seeing or peeping. which is a practice that's rooted in fortune telling. We see Sarah fortune telling. Donna foretold the radio tower crashing into the window. We saw Tilly playing solitaire, which was originally used for fortune telling. Even the intro song speaks of fortune telling. The future is not ours to see. Some practitioners of katoptromancy use crystal balls and even mirrors. We seen Boyd and Sarah in front of mirrors. The Jasmine Slowwalker was in front of a mirror. And the different mirroring aspects of Julie and Tabby. We even saw Tabby's reflection in the window at the hospital. I think that Jim will reach these cabins and find vital information as to some history of this place and more ways to fight the evils of Frumlin. I do not think that they've traveled back in time like my friend Taryn Matheru has stated in his theory. However, one of his theories that I 100% agree with is his eclipse theory. I do think it will happen in Frumlin, and I will add that it will also happen in the real world with Tabby. We might see it on the news or hear someone mention it beforehand, but I think it's going to happen. And speaking of the eclipse, I think that it will be the day that our favorite pancake chef, Miss Lou, will be tortured in the barn with Boyd. I hate to say it, but I do think we will see the slow walkers get busy, and I think it's going to be on her. I know a lot of people think it's Fatima, but I'm going with Mrs. Lou. And that's who we see Boyd carrying in the church and who the funeral is for. And judging by the tarp that the body's wrapped up with, I think that's her in the cart too. I think that during this chaotic eclipse, Fatima was at Colony House with Donna. And that's why we see Boyd telling Donna about the ambush. Because if she was there and Fatima was there, then she probably would have already known about it. But she obviously didn't, because he had to tell her what happened. Several people will die, which will probably lighten the strain that's coming from that food shortage. I do think that the residents will be severely tested and maybe even consider cannibalism, but I don't think they'll actually go across that threshold. I think we'll learn more about what's going on with the gooey kids and how they may be the baby slow walker. I think there's also a connection to them and the Puritan character influence that we're seeing as well. This man is another one of Jade's visions that will shed some light and give some clues to yet another historical aspect, just like the Civil War soldier, and a possible link to what's going on with the gooey kids. Jade is linked to them and probably knows more than Tabby does at this point, but she's outside and she's now seeing paintings of Eloise who depicted them exactly how they were in the vision she had of them on the side of the road. And as far as Tabby goes, I think that she will leave the hospital and seek a priest, just like she did with Father Kotri in Frumlin. That priest will then put her in the direction of Victor's father, and we will see Tabitha and Victor's father go to see or look for Eloise. I think that we will find out that Victor's memories are not accurate and that it was actually Eloise who was wearing the bracelet and somehow was able to put it back in the storage room via a dream, which I believe is how she got it in the first place on the day of Julie's birth. Speaking of birth, I think that the season will end with Fatima going into labor, Jade making a major breakthrough in regards to the symbol, Boyd being challenged by yet another new threat, learning more about his connection to the slow walkers and the spiders, and Tabitha making a connection with Julie inside of Frumlin. Here's a few honorable mentions. Tabitha will contact her parents. She will meet a shaman on the outside and possibly a group that knows about Frumlin. I think somebody on the outside will try to stop her. Tilly is going to find out that Megan, her granddaughter, was there. I think that Elgin might die. Sarah's going to actually predict the coming of new people. I think that Clara with the eye patch might die. I also think that the newcomer that comes to Frumlin will know somebody. I think Jim is going to learn that he's connected to this place by his bloodline. And lastly, I think we'll see something sprouting from the soil to indicate that the blight is over and symbolize new beginnings. Now, these are just my theories based on the new trailer that we got and the 30-second teaser that we had. If they drop some more information or another trailer, I'm sure we're going to dissect that and probably come up with more theories, and maybe some of our theories will actually be debunked before the season even starts. Anyway, just something to think about while we wait on the next episode. That's all for my video today. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.